With this upload, I'm going to complete reading out the behind-the-scenes information relating to the Faceless ones, which it was obtained via the TARDIS Data Core for Doctor Who Fan Wiki. As well as the complete 16mm black and white film telerecording of Episode 1, the BBC archives also hold an incomplete print returned from the ABC in Australia in 1981 after the Australian census had edited out the following scenes: Spencer killing Inspector Gascoigne with a chameleon ray gun, the alien arm emerging from the cupboard, and panning shots of the alien figure, seen only from behind, at the end of the episode. A copy of the Australian censored 16mm film telerecording of Episode 1 also exists in a private collection. It's kind of a lame that our broadcasting company would censor all the cool bits. Yeah, for this serial, the BBC purchased a lot of stock footage from aeroplanes in flight from Film Centre International, and that footage still exists today. This technically means that surviving footage exists from Episode 4, but it is debatable as to whether this counts as surviving footage, as it was not filmed specifically for the episode. Ben Jackson and Polly Wright depart in this story after having appeared only in Episodes 1, 2, and 6. That's true. Samantha Briggs was originally named Mary Dawson, then Cleopatra Cleo Briggs. Samantha Briggs was originally intended to be a companion, despite begging from Innes Lloyd and Fraser Hines, Pauline Collins turned down the offer of a regular role with the series. She would later appear as Queen Victoria in Tooth and Claw roughly 40 years later. Chameleon Tours was originally called Pied Piper Tours. Nurse Pinto was originally named O'Brien. Blade was originally named Quinn. The story originally took place at Heathrow Airport, or London Airport as it was known then. In the original Episode 2, both the Doctor and Ben investigated the hangar but failed to find Polly, being menaced instead by a falling engine rather than gas, and Ben and Samantha then rescued Polly in Episode 3. When the animated reconstruction of this serial was released in 2020, it marked a 10-episode run of animated reconstructions that began with Episode 1 of the Macra Terror and continued through to the final episode of this serial. At the time, this beat the previous consecutive run of 7 episodes, starting with Episode 4 of the 10th Planet and running through to the end of The Power of the Daleks. Since then, the largest consecutive run is now 17 episodes, starting with the Macra Terror and continuing through to the end of the 2021 release of The Evil of the Daleks. Furthermore, this is the first incomplete serial missing more than half of its episodes, excluding those missing all of their episodes, to receive an animated reconstruction. Additionally, this is the first time that surviving episodes have been animated. Michael Cray said that he would have much preferred that Ben be killed off, as he found Ben and Polly's departure to be rather weak. Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines are both unhappy at Michael Cray's and Anna Quill's departure, as they'd all become good friends. Troughton credited them with helping him find his feet as the Doctor. It's interesting. It actually works surprisingly well together that, for the most part, the Doctor having 3 companions. Normally, there's an issue of the Doctor, particularly 5th Doctor, having, and later 4th Doctor, having too many companions, and it's just like, after a while, it gets annoying to just have so much screen time devoted to all of these people. Although, I do feel as though their chemistry together at least worked well, and Ben and Jamie had enough individual things to do in an episode. There was usually enough going on for them to have to split their duties. And Polly, when she wasn't being a damsel, was a fun, charismatic and assertive character, certainly in terms of how she interacted with the others, with the boys. But ultimately, I wouldn't change the generally brilliant and iconic dynamic of the Doctor and Jamie and someone who is less familiar with them, obviously Victoria or Zoe. I wouldn't change that for anything. It's too good to pass up for any other replacement. Anyway, now let's continue these. This was the last story that Shawcraft Models worked on due to numerous mishaps. The door to the satellite didn't work properly, and the bulb on its base blew with no replacement on hand. Most severely, they had not considered how the satellite should be mounted, and when they finally suggested hanging it from a wire, the model proved too heavy and fell to the floor. Shawcraft was able to refurbish the prop overnight, but only at the expense of several hours of work by Gerry Mill's team. Then, during the last day at Gatwick, Spencer's freezing gun broke, and it took the company several days to repair it. The animated version of this serial contains several references to other Doctor Who stories and characters. In episodes 1 and 6, posters of the Master, with the faces of Roger Delgado, who would become the first actor to play the role 4 years after the original serial was broadcast, and Sacha Dhawan, who became the most recent actor to play the role at the time of the animated version's release, are visible when the police officers prepare to mount their bikes. The face of the meddling monk can also be seen on the board in episode 6. Also posted on the board is a flyer for Waterfield Antiques. In episode 2, the papers that Jamie and the Doctor read while avoiding airport security contain some interesting references. The newspaper is titled Mill Hill Times, a reference to director Gerry Mill. An advertisement for a company called Marinus Padlocks can be seen on the back page, accompanied by a picture of a lock and a pair of keys with a triangle emblem, a sly reference to the first Doctor serial, The Keys of Marinus. Also seen as an advertisement for a rough and tumble cabinet. This is a reference to the previous animated story, in which there was a scene in the original broadcast episode where the Doctor uses a rough and tumble machine to dishevel his clothes after having them unwillingly cleaned up by the colony workers. This scene was not included in the animated release due to budgetary constraints. There is also an article about brave rescue dogs, Chelsea FC, and an advert for whiskey. Copies of the famous fashion magazine Vogue can also be seen on display behind them. I had a friend's girlfriend worked for Vogue Australia. They're an extra in Pandemonium. Actually, you'll know them when you see them. During the eye test scene, the words Big Ron and Bad Wolf, albeit spelled backwards, are visible on the test board. In episode 6, when the Commandant is speaking over the intercom system, a sign advertising Magpie Electricals can briefly be seen. The daily reflection on the Commandant's desk displays the front page headline, War Machines Defeated. Funny, the Faceless ones is almost the stylistic sequel to the War Machines, as I stated earlier. Anyway, I think we'll end it here before we get blocked. Thanks again, my good and dear friends.